Yeah, so thank you for looking in on the squirrels. I have been asked to do this at short notice because the original speaker hasn't been able to make it. So if you've come to see the original speaker, I'm sorry you've got me, but I'll try and make it a little bit entertaining for you. So next week is the National Red Squirrel Awareness Week. So this ties in very, very nicely, really. And I'd like to speak about these delightful characters that live in my back garden at home. I live in Thornby in Liverpool, and I'm right close to the nature reserve. And these are rural red squirrels, so they live in and around the houses and the trees and the gardens, and they quite regularly come down. Now, 6 years ago when I moved to the area, they were very, very shy, these squirrels, so I had to work really hard to get them to come close to a position where I could get a photograph of them. So it took me about a year to get them to actually venture into the garden. So we started, the first thing I wanted to do, and I can show you a quick setup on screen. I started just putting feed out in certain pots, which were right down the far end of the garden. And they seemed to enjoy that. And then gradually over time, I started moving the feeder closer to the house so I could get a position of being able to get a good photograph. So I was moving feeders around, and just really step by step, and it really did. It took me a year to get them into a position where I could photograph them. I started with these, just putting some posts into the garden, and then I put some hazelnuts on top. And eventually, I encouraged them to hop from one to the other. And this is just the trail cam footage, and you'll see the squirrels hop across in a moment. And then that was pretty much my setup where I was going to be. So I then progressed this where I put some wood along the top of the posts, and I put 2 inverted buckets on. So that was to stop the squirrel coming up to the front part where the hazelnuts were. So the squirrel had to launch from that side. And you can see I've just got an additional piece of wood there, and I was changing the length and seeing what they were comfortable with when they needed to jump. So that was pretty much accomplished. I'd established a pattern of behaviour with them at that point. And again, you can see how quick they jump. They're really, really quick. You know, they're covering 2 meters there in probably a quarter of a second. So the photography side of it then needed a very specific setup. So I decided to shoot with remote cameras, so I wasn't out there troubling the squirrels. So as you can see, that's my Sony A9 with the 70-200. And then I built up a static area for doing this type of shot where I could put props out and encourage the squirrels to play with the props. And it was a slow development. It took some time, but it's been well worth it in the end. So this is some of my crew who are quite regular. Bobby has lived with me for 3 years now. He's been in the garden. And Bobby's a female. She's had 3 litters so far, and we've actually got some of the young in the garden at the moment. And this one is Jagger, and Jagger is still about as well. Jagger's had, I think, 2 litters. And it's great just to see them developing and the different generations. The BBC picked up on the story, and they sent a film crew out, and they actually appeared on the BBC News at tea time and also the evening. And they also did a big section on the iPlayer. Also featured on the homepage. And also we made the homepage with our friend there, Boris Johnson. And that's not bad for a rodent that lives in the back garden. I've had some quite good success in photography awards as well, where they've been shorted in the land section, and also with the societies of photographers where they won the international print competition. So they tend to beef up in the winter. They tend to put a lot more weight on. So it's hard to keep tabs with them because they change virtually day by day. The ear tufts grow and they change appearance so much. But they still give some great jumps even when they're carrying the weight. This is just a little reflection pool I built. It's just basically just a piece of plastic with water in, and I've just decorated it there for them. They do a strange behaviour. When they're actually jumping when it's wet or it's raining, they shake mid-jump. And common sense would think that they'd shake before they jump, but they don't. They always do it when they're mid-air. And that's when we get this type of shot here, on what's on the screen. And it does make for a good picture. Oh, sorry. Do you want to change some of them jumps for the jump shots, please? And as you can see, when they've got more of the weight on, they look almost Scandinavian. You know, they look like something out of a futuristic movie. And they really are. They're beautiful to watch as they go around. And they have strange behavioural patterns as well. Sometimes they'll be eaten, or other times they'll just take all the food and bury it, and then dig it back up, and then bury it again later on. And they tend to do through cycles on a daily basis, really, as they go about the business. So lockdown was a little bit different for us. Everybody was stuck at home. And really, these red squirrels were really great for my mental health and everybody at home. So we decided I was going to do something different with them, and that's when I decided to start doing more of the illustrative series. This is a slow motion jump as he comes in. And they're just fantastic. I've not watched TV since I've moved to Formby. I haven't seen the TV for 6 years. I just sit looking out the window. These are some of the jumps. Low light photography when they're jumping is really, really difficult because you need a fast shutter speed. I'm at 1/2000th of a second to catch these and freeze them. And when the light is low or when it's raining, it's really difficult. So this is the squirrel you saw before. And you can see she's heavily pregnant at this moment. And she had a beautiful litter. She had 3 kittens, which we saw actually grow. This guy's done really good. He's graced the front cover of 2 publications. He got the front cover of the Society's magazine, Professional Imaging, and also he was on the Amateur Photography. I think it's that title. I get mixed up with the titles. There's that many of them, but he's one of those as well. It's one of the future publishing titles. So I bought a little trolley. Well, my wife bought it actually. She rang me up. She said, "I made Marks and Spencer's, and they've got little miniature trolleys. Do you want one?" I went, "Yeah." So I was straight out in the garden and put some nuts in there for them. So as you can see, this is Jagger just checking the buy one get one free items. And this is Bobby. And Bobby's actually looking through my window where I work, where my office is at home. I look out onto the garden, and Bobby's he's just dancing at me because there's no nuts out. So through behavioural, teaching them a behavioural habit, they've gone from being extremely shy and living in the trees to actually being confident enough to come down and around the house. And there's Nelson there. He's been doing a bit of shopping as well. But the serious side behind this is I'm involved in conservation of the red squirrels. And we've actually, the current estimates are they'll be extinct within 8 years in the UK if current trends continue. They're a high risk of becoming extinct. There's the squirrel pox, which is devastating. That will kill over 90% of infected squirrels within 2 weeks. And it's very similar to myxomatosis in rabbits. So there's a lot of efforts going on at the moment to try and protect them and keep the environment they live in clean and secure for them. Because once they've gone, they'll not be back, they'll be finished. So there's Nelson with his shopping trolley. And I try and mix it up a little bit. I mean, for the likes of these pictures, the actual musical instruments are just hanging on bits of cotton. So I've just tempted them with a little bit of peanut butter on there, and they're just hanging with cotton. And eventually the squirrels will come up and grab them to eat the base that's on the end of there. And then in Photoshop we just clone the sides out. Another one is that we like to do is to do a little bit of composite work with them as well. So the likes of this shot, there was 2 squirrels in that shot, and then a third one came along. But because I'm shooting remotely and the cameras are on tripods, it's very, very easy to just layer them and to add another one in there. So let's have a little look back up here again. That's the guy we've just seen. And if you print your work, it's so much better. And I'll just make the point for Fotospeed now. I mean, when you look at that, it looks good, it's okay, but it is only a lick of light. You know, it's nothing tangible. When you actually put it up to the print, and the print is something you can actually hold. I can't pass them around because of the COVID, I'm sorry, but when you've actually got a print you can hold in your hand and you can admire it and pop it up on your wall, it's a different proposition entirely. I use the platinum Barita paper mostly because that's my favourite type of paper. And the Fotospeed brand, it actually holds the blacks brilliant. If you want to look at these at the end, you're more than welcome to. But you'll see the depth in the blacks. They've all got detail in. Even on the high contrast pictures, the print on the paper has managed to keep that detail so well. And it makes a huge difference. And again, I'm just playing about. I've gone to, I'm shooting this one at f1.4 just to blur the background out. And it's what I tend to do a lot with these squirrels. Because I'm in a garden environment, I don't want the garden fence at the bottom of the garden shown in the picture. So I do need to shoot with wide open apertures as much as I can. So normally I'd be around f2.8. Sometimes I push it, as in this one, to f1.4. And that's Nelson just having a little bit of fun on his car. And the sunflowers are just on a stand with a clamp at the back. And all I do, I'll get a little bit of nut, and I'll just crunch it up, and I'll just drop it in the top. And they come along, and they love it. They jump up, and they're very, very inquisitive creatures. So anything you put out for them, if it's new or they've not seen it, they love to go and see it, and they love to investigate and have fun. And you can see with Prince this time that his ear tufts are just beginning to grow. So this will be going out of the summer months. And even the squirrels we have in the garden at the moment, their tufts are just starting to develop. And you can see they're actually eating more than what they're burying at the moment. They cache a lot of nuts. They take so many nuts out of my garden, it's unbelievable. But most of them are just buried. And the behaviour when they're burying as well, it's quite good fun to watch. Often they'll pick a nut up and they'll roll the nut first to check that it's healthy and fresh. And the direction they roll the nut depicts whether it's a left-handed squirrel or a right-handed squirrel. And then they'll pop it in the mouth and they'll run off. And then they'll bury it. But a lot of the time, they won't actually bury it. They'll dig up and pat the ground down, but still got the nut in the mouth and it'll run off. And what it's doing, it's tricking anything else which is looking to steal the actual nut. And then it's quite often again, it'll bury a nut and one of its friends will come along and dig it straight back up and run off again. So it's a good comedy show at times. And these are my favourite. These are the most challenging, the jump shots. You can see specks of rain. So I will have had cloud there. And once that light levels drop, you've really got to start managing your camera. You've got to manage your ISO. You've got to change aperture, get your aperture wide open. And you've got to balance that shutter speed. It's always a problem between getting enough shutter speed, but not pushing the ISO too high. And this is a typical rain shot where they shake off, and there's a few of these. There's another one there in print. And depending on where you catch them during the shake, you get the scatter of the water coming away from them. And they're just great pictures to catch them mid-flight. You also get the Superman pose sometimes, which is great. And depending on the height of the camera, I vary it. But you'll be surprised how much just like an inch or a couple of inches makes to the type of shot what you get. And also the position for the angle from front to left. Some of the squirrels are high jumpers, that jump really, really high. Like this one, he's quite a low jumper. He's more of a hop, but he does go vertical as he goes across. So it depends what type of shot you're looking to capture. But it really is, it's a game of tolerances really, and very, very small tolerances. You're looking at it changing an inch sometimes just to get the shot you're after. And this is Prince. He's a show-off Prince. Whatever you put out for him, he'll jump it. And this is just a shot from below in the silhouette. There's Prince again. And this is Prince coming up to the sunflower. This was the first time he'd ever seen a sunflower when I put it out. And I didn't bait it up at this point. There's no nuts in there. He was just mesmerised with the flower. And it's lovely to see. And again, you can see that smooth background and it almost looks textured, but it's not textured. It's just I've shot it at f1.4, so it's just knocked that background completely out. And any textures that are there are just blaring away. And there he goes up for a look inside. So this is Cuddles. I bought them a convertible car out of the toy shop. So I took the seats out of it and I made sure it was safe. I put some tape inside and made sure it was all nice and smooth, popped a few nuts in, and then Cuddles was along, and as you can see, she loved it. She was still heavily pregnant at this time, but she jumped in and she wouldn't get out. She spent a lot of time in there. And they really do. They love toys. Anything you put out for them, they're quite happy to engage with them and to have a bit of fun. This is a straight picture as well. This is a litter pair, and these came down, and they were trying to decide who was getting in and who isn't. And again, there was two red squirrels in this picture originally, but I've just laid in the other two as they've moved around. I want to put this out. I think I titled this something like, who's lost the keys, something like that, as if they're looking around. This guy's got his own construction company. Oops. And a little bit of fun with the ladder this time. I mean, this guy looks really, really scared. He looks a bit shaky going up the ladder. And my wife was actually saying to me, watch he doesn't fall off. 2 minutes later, he's 40 metres up in a tree, jumping from one tree to the next. So they really are quite acrobatic. I think what he's doing there had a nut at the top. I think he was just balancing, trying to get the last of the nut from the top section there. And this one came along separately and was looking up at the nut as well. So I'll just put them together just to give it a little bit more of a narrative. And this is in the winter months, really. You can see the way they've changed now. We've got the ear tufts on them, and they're beautiful the way they grow. This particular one has got gradations in the tuft. It's got a pattern in there. You see the tail bushes up, and just the body weight. They must double in size, really, in the body weight from what you see. I've never measured one, but they grow much, much larger. And this is just showing you a setup shot, what I mentioned before about the cotton. So I've just used cotton, and don't use nylon or anything. That's got to be cotton, what you can simply just pull apart and it'll snap, because I don't want it to get snagged onto the squirrel. A little bit of peanut butter on the end there, and he dutifully comes along and obliges, grabs the saxophone to eat it, and then I'll just take the cotton out in Photoshop, add a little bit of sun rays in the back, and he's good to go. A similar setup again. This is a younger squirrel this time. And he ends up there. But by using that really wide aperture lens, it's almost like texturized the background when you look at them. And this is just a duo. Dad and lad, both having a good play about with the instruments. Same setup again, on string on this one. Dad and lad again. They do tend to come in the garden in a group. It's almost like somebody has emptied a box of crazy red squirrels in the garden sometimes. They just come running in on 4s and 5s and they bounce everywhere. And they tend, when they're finished, to leave together as well. So these are just having a little play on the drums. Another Superman shot. I'm coming up to Christmas as well. Everyone loves at Christmas. So what I actually did, I put a calendar together last year of pictures, and I started selling them in November. So we were able to raise quite a bit of money for the Wildlife Trust, who was involved in managing the red squirrels up in Formby. This little one I've got in rehab at the moment. It's quite ill. I've got him in a wildlife rehabilitation centre. I'm hoping I'm going to get him back next week and release him. If we can't release him, sadly he's not going to be with us. And that one is the print, which we showed before. But as you can see, the difference in the print to the actual picture, it's huge. I think it's gone back in the pile, actually. No, there it is on the end. And I've always encouraged people to print going back, because that's a nice picture. The colours are off because it's not calibrated the screen. But the difference in actually seeing that and then it's gone moments later, so having the print and being able to hold it and see it and admire it time and time again, it's absolutely huge, the difference. And you always encourage people to print. For anything else, you've got them forever and a day. Whereas if it's digital, you just run the risk of losing them. Nice big wide angle shot again, coming around to the side this time using a slightly different lens. And I always try and assess the light when I go out in the garden. When the sun comes up, it comes up there in the east and it moves across, and we've got some really big trees. And when the sunlight is bright, we can get the bokeh balls coming through the tree line. So I'm always in the first thing in the morning, so I always look to see which way the sun's going to develop, whether it's going to be bright, whether it's going to be sunny, whether it's diffused. And at that point, I'll decide where I'm going to put the cameras out. I just spotted this guy before. Same squirrel, different shot. And again, I've mentioned the angles. This is the same shot. This is 2 cameras on remote. So the difference between that one and that one, it's stark. It's exactly the same frame from 2 different cameras at the same point in time. So the angles make a huge difference, and it took me a long time to learn the best way to capture them, best height, best positions. And again, just trying to encourage them to get in the bath, but they wouldn't. They weren't interested, a pair of them. They get very, very dirty as well when it's wet and when it's raining. They're always burying in the mud and digging up in the mud. They're in the trees. And this is the way they appear sometimes, absolutely saturated. But it makes for a great picture as well. The tails they use for balance, particularly when they're jumping, they'll whip the tail round. If it's a little bit windy, because they're only very, very light creatures, the wind can take them easily. So if they are going off target slightly, they'll whip the tail up, and sometimes it'll go like a propeller as it's coming through the air, just to bring them back in to the correct landing place. And you can see here the tufts. I took this only last week. The tufts are really starting to grow on their ears now. And you can distinguish them. There's only the red squirrel that has the tufts on the ears. You see this one, the Olympic one, where they start to grow. And he's been in the mud, this guy. Absolutely full of it, saturated. And again, you can see how dark and dingy it is compared to this type of picture. And the sort of, you're balancing in all ways, really, because you want the jump shot. You want it in the rain because you get the splatter of the water, but you've got low light. So it's a bit of a balancing act to just try and get the best out of them. And this is a beautiful shot. You can see the tufts growing, the big curl. Very, very classic view of the red squirrel. So this is where we're up to at the moment. There's about 2.5 million grey squirrels in the UK. There's less than 100,000 reds. And the problem is, the greys are asymptomatic, so they carry the squirrel pox, but they don't have any symptoms from it or any ill health. As soon as they transfer the virus to the red squirrel, over 90% of them will die a very, very painful death within 2 weeks. And that runs through the whole colony. There's areas in the UK that are being totally wiped out with the red squirrels. There's none left there. Formby is a little bit of a stronghold, but it's under fierce attack at the moment. So we're involved with the local MP, the Wildlife Trust, National Trust, and we're just trying to do what we can just to try and help them and keep that population alive. And that's one of the things I've been doing with this photography. Like this snow shot here, that's just a little bit different as well. That's come out when we had a bit of snow earlier on the year. And I'm a firm believer, that I work professionally as a photographer and I do work that I get paid for. But I believe that as a photographer, or just as a good human being, really, if you've got anything, a skill or something you can give back to nature, I think everybody should do it unconditionally. It's important. These have been native to the United Kingdom for a long, long time, and they really are under attack. 6-7 years, there may not be a single one left in the UK, which will be absolutely shameful, really, if we don't try our absolute best to prevent that situation arriving. And I think that's about the end of it. I am a Sony shooter, so that's why that's up there. But if you've got any questions or you want to have a look at the papers, Fotospeed have kindly asked me to come on here today. And Platinum Burrito, if you do competition photography, it's absolutely perfect for that. It's a good weight. It's 300 gram, so it holds. It doesn't start to ripple or anything once you mount it. It holds them blacks beautifully, and it's got really, really good colour, true colour. Once you set up and you calibrate it on your system, the colours are fantastic from it. And I'd say I print 95% of what I do on the Burrito. But they have test packs and different types of things. So, anyone got any questions? No?
I'll ask you a question then, Terry. I'll kick things off.
Okay.
In terms of technology, autofocus systems, how has the advances in those technologies over the years that you've been photographing squirrels, how has it changed your photography, and how has it allowed you to capture more specialist shots or allow you to be more creative with your squirrel photography?
Absolutely. I mean, I am a Sony shooter, so on the Sony Alpha cameras, we do have a feature which is eye animal autofocus, and it will actually identify an animal's eye, and it'll lock the focus straight onto that. And that's really important, especially when you're shooting with wide open apertures, f1.4, f1.8, 2.8. You need that confidence to know the sharp on the eye. And if you look at any of these prints, you'll see every single picture is pinch sharp on the eye. And it's really important. So that has helped me a lot. And what it does, it's a lot of people say these features don't make you a better photographer, and they don't. But what they do allow you to do is to put your resources into the other parts of the photography, because that technical side of it is right. So, you're not constantly looking at the back of the camera or zooming in. The camera's caught it, and it'll be spot on. The other thing that's been a real plus for me is the actual speed of the cameras. When these squirrels jump, these are covering 2 meters in probably a quarter of a second. So I shoot a Sony A9 on a Sony Alpha 1. So I've got 20 frames per second on the A9. I've got 30 frames per second on the Alpha 1. So that means I've got a really good choice of pictures to make sure I've got them absolutely spot on. And of course, the values, the ISO performance as well on new cameras now is so good. You're no longer really worrying about going over ISO 2000. I'll commonly shoot with ISO 6000, without any concerns.
You don't even really notice those imperfections from those high ISO shots when you print them, do you? All that kind of noise disappears. People worry quite a lot about taking shots at high ISO, don't they? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The only people that worry about noise is us. Nobody else sees it. And you're quite right in what you say. When you print as well, printers love slightly, like a little bit of noise in the shot, because it's something for it to process and to print out. But you'll see when you print them, that noise tends to melt away, disappear. I mean, you'll not find any noise in these pictures, hopefully. I know some of these are shot at quite high ISO values. But again, it's testament to the paper and the modern day printers that it all comes together. They are really, really good. And this paper I can't recommend highly enough, the Platinum Burrito.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Terry, on the Platinum Burrito. It's one of my favourite papers for landscape photography as well. Yeah. Anyone got any more questions? Anyone? Don't be shy. Can I ask you? What lenses are you using, Terry, on the Sony cameras?
Okay, what lenses? I've got a couple of lenses I use. I've got a 400mm G Master, which I'm lucky to own because I shoot a lot of sports photography. But a lot of these pictures are shot with more affordable lenses. This one is with I think this is with a 70 to 200mm, which I think everybody has in the arsenal. I use a 135 f1.8 lens as well, 85mm 1.4. And the beauty of this type of photography, because most of it is done remotely, I can position the camera further in, so I don't need that long focal length to zoom in. I can put the camera pretty close to them. But yeah, 85mm upwards is what I use, but I'll use them in conjunction with each other. These ones, this is the 85, that's at f1.4. And I'll select the lens depending on what I want out of the shot. With this one, I definitely wanted a big blur on the background, so the 1.4 is the perfect choice. For the jumping, I'll normally go for the 400mm or the 70 to 200. Sometimes I'll have both of them out. So yeah, the great thing, as I say about it, you can move the camera and position it exactly where you want it to be.
Any more questions? Can I ask you another one? Sorry to hog your
Yes.
time. You've got quite a variety of different shots there. Some of them stays, squirrels flying through the air. Do you have a favourite type of shot that you like, either for technical or artistic reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still trying to get the absolute perfect jump shot. I've got some which are really, really good, and it's with photography, you set yourself a benchmark. Once you achieve something like this and that, then that's your base. So I'm always looking to progress that, and I'm always looking for little things that make the difference. Maybe a different type of body shape, maybe an expression, or even down to the water spraying in a certain direction, but adds something different to the style of picture. But yeah, the jump shots of I could do jump shots every day, all day long. I just love them.
Great stuff. Any more questions then? So Terry, if they want to see a bit more of your work, where can they go to find out more about your photography and the images you take?
Yeah, the Squirrels have got their own Facebook page, and they're Garden Red Squirrels. You can find me online at terrydonnelly.co.uk, at terrydonnelly01 on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm not hard to find. You just put my name in and these pictures will pop up.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much. I've really enjoyed that. We've got a couple more talks this afternoon, so hopefully I'll see a few of you back later on this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.